In today's episode of Build a Kayak, we're putting the two halves of the boat together and installing the bulkheads.
I am so excited. This is awesome. So remember, when you're sanding this, all you're doing is scuffing it up. You want it to be not shiny, but don't sand into the fiberglass cloth. If you expose the ends of it just a little bit, like where it's frayed and stuff, that's okay. That's actually going to bind pretty well. But just, if you sand through it, you just ruined it. You just took off that spot. And then really at that point, you can fix it. Just rough up some space a little farther and put some new glass in there. You'll be okay. But the new stuff we're putting in, this strip that's going to connect these two pieces, is about 2 inches wide. It's all the farther you need to go. Okay, at this point you've got everything sanded and wiped down and ready. And now we're ready for this fiberglass tape. I was wrong, it's not 2 inches wide, it's only 1.5 inches, but that's fine, that's what it's supposed to be. This container, when it came, said that it had 33 yards, which is 99 feet, 30 meters, way more than we need. I'm not sure if it actually has that much in it or not. We'll find out here, but if it does, it has plenty to do 2 boats worth. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna kind of clamp it in place real close here. I've got it about halfway, so half will go on each side. And what I'm going to do, just to hold it in place, is you just put a dab of hot melt here and there. Doesn't take much, you're just holding this in place. But that'll keep that in position while you put the deck on. I will point out here too, there are different methods of doing this. I've seen online, and you probably did too if you did some research. I've seen people where they measure out exactly what you need from one end to the other. They'll put a mark here, they'll put a mark on the tape so they know exactly where it should be positioned. Then they take this and roll this up and dip it into the resin. So it's all rolled up from both ends up to that index mark. They put it back down on the index mark and then they just roll it out from one end to the other. That looks difficult to me, so I kind of like this method, which is what is in the directions for this boat. I don't know, we'll try it and see what happens. If I don't like it on this side, I can switch on the other side when I go to do that. I can pull it off and do it differently. So, okay, at this point I have all the fiberglass strips attached on here, and they're just hot melted in place, which is nice because you can just take and kind of bend them in and they stay like that. They're going to stay flopped over. So now it's just a matter of setting this top on here. Looking to make sure all the tape went inside instead of outside, and it did. So we're good. Just gotta tape it up now. Got the whole thing taped up now. Everything's fitting pretty darn nicely all the way through. Really had to wrestle with it. Definitely took 2 of us, my wife and I, probably an hour and a half just to fight with this and get all these joints tight. Basically, one person holds them tight, the other person puts the tape on, and then you readjust a few times. But I did get it to shape up very nicely, and it fits well. Take you inside here, so you can see what that fiberglass looks like all the way through. And if I can maybe I can't, but you can see that joint is nice and tight now all the way through here. No light coming through, so that's great. So the next step is, I was going to mention, these saddles that this thing is in. I kind of hated them at first because the boat's always moving while you're working on it and stuff. But I'll tell you what, once you get to this point, it's really pretty slick because you can take it and put it up on its edge and it stays like that. And so now you can work on it that way, and it just makes it way more easier. So pretty cool thing there. And as I just tipped that, I was gonna show you this stuff too, and it fell off. So this right here is came in the package. It's actually the material that the seats are made out of. It's a closed cell foam. And I figured that was in there as packing material, but it also had another use. And so I kept it, and it does have another use. He says, take and cut a wedge of that and use that to install the, or not to install, but basically, as you go along here, you'll be using this to put this fiberglass on here. And having that wedge shape kind of tapered, it's soft at the end, really works nicely. You can just cut this, a nice clean cut, on any woodworking tools. I just used my chop saw, miter saw on that. And then after I did that, I kind of give it a little radius on the belt sander. So stuff works really nicely. I'm gonna take and glue that onto a long stick, and that will help me so I can reach into the ends, you know, all these in-between spots from the cockpit and the access ports. Okay, so that's kind of what I ended up with, just on a thin piece of wood. The nice thing about having it on a thin piece like that is you can kind of flex it and, you know, bend it into position however you need to. But that'll work nicely. It'll just slide right along there. Almost the same width. Yeah, that'll work beautiful. Okay, so we've got this mixed up and ready. Got the boat up on its side so all the epoxy will stay down where it's supposed to stay. So let's start here. I'm gonna probably start just by pouring this in there and then try to kind of rock it back and forth as we go. So let's just see what happens. Get as far as I can reach anyway. Probably gonna need to mix up some more. So far that was 10 pumps. Not sure exactly how much volume that is. I'm just gonna try to push it down here and see what happens. The stick works pretty well. Alright, I'm gonna set this down. And I'm gonna lift up this end of the boat, see if I can get that to go down to the other end. Let's see if that'll go. I'll go down there and see if that's running that way. Is it going?
No, it looks like you need more.
Well, it will, but it'll flow. It's slow, but it will go there.
Very, very slow.
Yep.
Okay, so at this stage, I have both the inner seams put together. It is now one piece, one boat. You can kind of see in here, there's that joint going all the way along there. Anyway, that's all put together. So the next thing to do is to take and we need to sand this off smooth, scuff it up so the new strip on the outside will fit on there and stick nicely. So I've done, I did a little bit of filling because I had a gap right here at the tip. And so I put some thickened epoxy in there and I'm letting that set up. It's almost hardened up now. And that'll help fill that. But then, I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is just a little lip right here. So this has got to get sanded back so it's nice and smooth. It fit almost all the way through on the edges nicely. Just that tip was not so good, so we'll fix that up. But that's the next part, and then we just do the same thing, a seam along that outside on both sides. What I'm doing is I pre-measured the material I need for the outside seam on the hull here. And now I'm going to just pre-wet it. Just going to roll it up. So it's got epoxy embedded in it the whole way. And then I'm going to take it and roll it onto the boat. Got the second seam, got the first layer of epoxy on there, got the fiberglass on it. So while I'm waiting for that, I thought I'd get working on the bulkheads, which is the next step. And kind of figured I'll get the blue tape there about where I want that front bulkhead to be. You can put it anywhere you want to, but make sure you give yourself enough leg room, measure yourself really well, like with the seat, where the seat's gonna be, where your legs will be. And then if someone else taller than you wants to paddle it too, you want to make room for that. So I kind of figured out on mine that it's going to be form number 6. So I've got that kind of stuffed in there. It gives you a really good interpretation of where that's going to be. So what I'll do now is cut some pieces of cardboard and stick them on there and get that refined so that shape is just right. Then I've got also number 12 here. Number 12 will fit back at the other end, behind the cockpit, between the two openings back there, so works pretty well. A good way to carry these things, move them around, is just to put a zip tie on them, because that lets you, put them into place very easily. Otherwise, they're really hard to get in and out of there. And then after I get that refined, I've got these strips all put together and ready over here too. I got them fiberglassed on both sides. And just got to sand those out and cut them out, but that'll be the blank that will get cut into this shape. Yeah, so what I ended up doing, instead of taping cardboard on there, I just used blue tape and kind of made a, representation of where it's got to be. I can pull that out and then just sketch that onto cardboard and
and refine it a little bit from there. Much easier.
So, I mean, I can break it because I did one already, which is pretty cool. But, you know, you put a lot of force into this because that's a straight piece to start with. You can really get it to bend a lot. It does break. In fact, what it did is it buckled on the inside. You see that? But the outside is still intact. It didn't break outside yet, so. Makes me feel a little better about taking this out and paddling it around. I've got that rear bulkhead all shaped. Installed now. Well, not installed, just kind of wedged in there right now, actually. And what I just did is just put a line with a marker all the way around here. Let me knock this out of here. Okay, so I've got that line all the way around there now, and that's going to show me where to sand that because I've got to rough that surface up so we can get that epoxied in there. So as soon as I sand that line off, we should be ready to install it. Getting ready to fiberglass in the bulkheads. You know, you've got to fasten them in there. The back one here, pretty easy to get to. I can reach that, you know, elbow or so. Right here, it's easy to get to. From the front, not too bad. But this one from here is 26 inches, over 2 feet here to get in, to reach in here and get this. I can't even reach that. So came up with some ideas on how to get that. You know, first we got to put a fillet of material around there and then put the fiberglass in. And so to reach that, what I did is I just bought some of these. They're just caulk tubes, empty caulk tubes. You know, they come with a 3-piece unit. It's just threaded on here. So I can fill that, put the cap on, and then that gives me a couple extra inches of stretch to get in there and fill around in there. And also, to smooth it out, obviously I can't reach with my hand, so I just made a little tool here. Just a stick with a rounded stick taped to the end of it. So that'll let me get in there and you know, smooth out and get a nice radius on that part that I can't reach. See, I put a little plastic down in here too, just to prevent any accidents. See how this goes here. That's working pretty well. Probably should have made it just a little thicker. It's trying to squirt out everywhere here, but it's working. I'll tell you what, that was a terrible, terrible mess. It's in there. I got the fiberglass in. It's not pretty. It's not going to be pretty. This was the best looking part right here because I could get to it with both arms. But on these other spots, like even back in here, you know, this is fairly close, you know, proximity. It's not that hard to reach in there, but you can't get two arms and your head. So you're either working blind with two arms or you're got half your head and one arm in there. You can see light showing through. That's not a problem. That's just around the edges. But yeah, it's a pain. So I did both sides of this rear bulkhead, and I was able to do the front on this one, but I was not able to do the cockpit side of this. So all I got in there was just the fillet. I was able to get that with that caulk gun pretty easily, but I didn't put any fiberglass on this side. So you just can't get to it. There's probably a method, or maybe I'm not supposed to do both sides of them. You know, one side's going to give you a lot of strength. So maybe that's it. If somebody knows, please put that in the comments because I'd love to learn that. Here I had a little epoxy left over too, so I just ended up putting these security straps on the hatch lids. So it's just that 3/4 inch nylon. Just epoxied that on there, sanded it real good, got it roughed up. So I have to do the same thing on the inside of the hatches too, so I'll attach another one inside of here at some point. Do you feel a little disoriented? Yep, I've got you up on an angle here. Got the boat kind of on a, I don't know, 60-degree angle or something. Getting ready to put in the footrests. So these are adjustable. These come with the kit if you buy the kit, but they're pretty cool. I've got these in my poly kayaks too, and they work nice. So basically, they've got these little feet here, and that foot will get put against the deck or the hull, and then they get epoxy and fiberglass over. So 2 layers of fiberglass go over top. But to get them in there, you gotta figure out where they're gonna go. So you want them basically around, I don't know if you can see this joint or not, but that's where the two pieces came together. That's the, what do they call that? I don't know. It's where the hull and the deck came together there. So you want it to be a couple inches below that. It's gonna be pretty much a natural footrest space. And then the front cleat wants to be 54 inches from the back of the cockpit. Or he said sometimes some people put their bulkhead too far forward, and then you're going to want to be pretty much right up against it. But in my case, it's about 2 inches off that bulkhead is where that's going to sit. So I just got to go in and sand it, rough it up a little bit. And then what you do, obviously you can't fiberglass in there with all this stuff in the way, right? You just want to fiberglass this one piece and cover over. It'd be really tough to do. So what you do is just hot melt these down, just a little dab on each corner to hold these in place once you get it where you want it. Then you can take the screws off, pull it out. So that way you can just have this piece, you know, will be in there like that to get fiberglassed in. Okay, got myself some fast set epoxy mixed up. I've got 4 little pads that'll go over top. I just sliced a little hole in the middle to go over the screw. I'm gonna put 2 of these on each one of these. That'll give me the 2 layers. They can both go on at once. They don't have to go on separately, because the epoxy will just go right through them. Hardest part is reaching down in here. Make sure you don't get any on the threads, obviously, because then you won't be able to tighten this thing down later.
Working?
It's working.
Working?
It's working.
Working?
It's working.
Working?
It's working.